Hey guys, so for this fun video, we're turning this chicken scratch page that I created into this amazing comic page. I know. So if y'all didn't know, I'm Arlathea. So one of the things I like doing on this channel besides drawing dinosaurs, fantasy stuff, and dragons is I have my own characters that I create comics with. So this is actually my second comic I have. It's called Riders, so it's generally just a dragon rider story pretty much. Like I did this one as a second one because I had just read Fourth Wing. Like, I've read all three books now. After reading Fourth Wing, I got super excited to do my own Dragon Rider story that I had kind of sitting for a while. Because I'm working on my first comic, which is my main one, and I'm over 20 pages into that one, so this is only page 2. So I wanted to get started on this one kind of like right away because I was just so excited. However, this page in particular, I was not a fan of because it involves people, and like I can draw people as you saw, but they're not my strong suit like at all. I'm still learning how to actually create with them. So it's a bit of a struggle bus for me, especially while I'm trying to learn how to do like different facial features and give different proportions and like all this stuff. So it's a lot I'm still having to learn because in my Arlathea story, which is my first comic, and pretty much all my other stories, they all relatively have the same kind of body type. The reason why, like even in here, the reason why is because of what they do. It just makes sense for them to be like a little bit more fit and whatnot. So that's why I'm like, a certain other characters I'm having, especially like the generic kind of ones, I'm having to kind of like play around, like figure out how to make them a little bit differently. Because you know, not everyone's going to look the same. So I'm just trying to explore a little bit on that one. But even just drawing them and whatnot, it's just a huge struggle mess for me. So it's like I'm trying to expand and be a little bit better. And like, I don't really draw facial hair and stuff. And so I'm having to like do a whole bunch of stuff to like figure it out and whatnot. So it's definitely an adventure for me right now. But I know with like each drawing I do, I'll get better. Because I do have 6 comics total right now. Um, so 4 of them actually do involve people. Like they're actually like one of the main guys are people. And then my first comic and my last comic are just like anthropomorphic characters. So they're just animals, which makes it a lot easier. Because my first comic actually involves like my mascot and like pretty much where my name came from and like all this stuff. So to me, they're a little bit easier to draw than people. It's just mostly my issue with people are their faces. Obviously, everything else, like body-wise, like I'm pretty okay with. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but if you're new here and if you have never seen my stuff before, I do not do accuracy. That is not me. Like every now and then I might use a reference for like either these little drawing figures I have or like a comic book creator thing I have where it's got a bunch of different poses. Every now and then I might use that. But for the most part, I just draw stuff from imagination because that's just what I prefer to do. Like, I'm not a huge reference user, that's just not part of my creative process. I just kind of prefer just doing it the way that I want to. Like, that's just how I personally feel. Could it be a little bit better if I use more references? Yes. But again, that's just not what I like doing unless I feel like I have to, or it's just a type of pose I'm not used to doing and I'm like trying to figure out like how the body parts would be or just how they would look and whatnot, like perspective. So sometimes I will look at stuff for that just to kind of get a better idea so it makes some type of sense. Sorry, there's a helicopter right now. I don't know why. Okay, so when I need something to make a little more sense because it's like a bit of a harder pose, then I'll actually look up stuff. But for the most part, I just don't. So if you watch my other videos or anything, like you'll see that I am very kind of, I just do whatever I want pretty much, like with all my stuff. But I feel like that just adds to my style and like the charm of my drawing because I'm not super accurate or anything. Like it just adds on to like the fun bits, you know? It's just that little bit of creativity that comes with it. Because like if you want realism, you have to go to somebody else because I am not realism. To me, I'm more of like a semi-realism because of the way that I draw, but I feel like the way that I color kind of helps bring in a little bit more of that realism, just a tiny bit. Like my last video was a painting I did of a spring hedgehog I call Clover. To me, that was probably the best thing I've pretty much ever done, especially painting wise, because I'm starting to get into painting more. So, but like, even with like markers and pencils, certain things I feel like do help. Obviously, hands are not the best, but a lot of people have problems with hands. I'm still learning how I want to do them, so I'm slowly getting there. But a lot of this I know just takes time. So I guess even though like I do not like drawing people, like I was dreading this page just because of the amount of people and there's just nothing going on. It's just talking. I still got through it. So like I had to kind of like drag myself through it because it was very difficult at times because I was like, I'm not in the mood for this. But I'm like, I also need to get done because of how I have my writer story set up. So it was kind of necessary. I know in the future this will happen a lot too, but eventually we'll get more dragons in and whatnot. The dragons are there in like the last 3 panels, which they're more in the background, so I don't have a huge focus on them, but they are there. So later on, we'll get to see them a tiny bit better. It's just not right now. So right now, I'm kind of just like, I'm also kind of showing you just kind of how I drew them out, but also just like checking to make sure I'm like fairly okay with how they look. Again, it's not perfect. I'm having to learn, but I also know for me, instead of like dwelling on it and like trying to make it perfect, just draw it. If I think it looks good, just move on. Because that's the only way I can get better is by just doing that, creating more things, and just kind of practicing, doing different stuff, like all that whatnot. Like even with the skin colors and stuff, like I am trying to vary those a little bit and whatnot and just trying different stuff. So like out here, they are outside. So there's lights outside, but it's also dark. So that's why it's not like super bright. And their colors are a little bit, tiny bit darker than usual. Even though I don't make like a main focus on the light, that's just kind of how it was. So I'm just trying to expand and just kind of practice because then that's what works best for me is just do it and move on. Because it's like the more I dwell on it, because I do have an issue sometimes where even with comic pages every now and then, I'll create it, get to the point where I'm like pretty much like marker's done. I look at it and I hate it and I start all the way over again. Even with drawings, like some drawings I will take 3 or 4 times to create until I'm actually happy with it. It's bad, but it's like, I don't like, sometimes I do feel like by the second or third try, it looks a lot better than the first. But even then, I'm kind of keeping myself stuck because I'm not going forward like I should be. So some stuff takes me longer than it needs to get done. Like these comic pages, the goal is to kind of get 2 done a year for each comic because I have 6, 12 months of the year, but right now that's not going to happen. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So that's why I'm like, whenever I do work on these comic pages, I kind of just need to do them once and then move on. So that way I can get that practice in and I can advance the story some more, especially because I'm doing, 1 story per cycle pretty much. Because I'm doing it to where I have like, I do a comic page, then I will work on a character drawing, which I'm actually, for my first character drawings, about to do my last character for like the green section, because I have essentially like green, red, orange, and white is what the different colors essentially are. So we're about to finish the greens off before we move on to the reds, because I have more greens to do, but I'm kind of just doing like the main characters first. And then I'm trying to do like a painting almost like every month or every other month or something. So I have that. I'm going to start including more series of like kind of like draw this in your style / follow like a tutorial and then do it your own way kind of thing. That's mostly what I have. There's also like just drawing like a generic drawing. Like I have different series I like to do. Like I have months, I have seasons, there's dinosaurs, fantasy. But I have those on hold because I also have a store. So with my regular drawings, like I just updated my fire dragon drawing with some of his other things. So next up will be the Metro. And then my last video, my spring hedgehog, he'll also be updated as well for, I'm hoping April, so we'll see. But I have the regular drawings on pause for right now until I can catch up with them because I have so many. So I want to catch up with them first before I start up again. So I'm like, I have several things that I go back and forth on. So it's kind of a lot. That's why it kind of takes, especially when I'm kind of like busier or I have like other things going on, business-wise and like little side ventures. It takes me a while to get through these comic pages, which it does suck because there's a lot of things I want to do with these pages. Because I have so many ideas and like a future for it that because it's taking me so long to get there, it sucks. Because it's not like I'm writing it down, like I'm drawing it with like a little bit of the words and then that's all I can do for the 1 page and then I move on. So that's why like some pages, if you go back and look at some of them, they have so many different panels on the page, which is probably really bad. But it's just because I just want to get through the story. Like I want to get to the exciting parts. I want to get to like the action and the fun and the adventure and like all the things I have planned. So it's like I'm having to learn how to pace it So that way I can do both with like a fairly okay storytelling, because obviously I'm unprofessional, like I'm just kind of learning as I go, and then just like trying to entertain you guys with like the little bits and bobs I have. So it's like a balance, but that's just the way it is. So that's why I'm trying to learn as I go. But yeah, this is like the marker stage. So obviously the marker, I don't blend because one, I never really learned how to, and I've never really tried. I know it's probably bad to say, but it's true. But because I like to use Prismacolor pencils, like those are my absolute favorite pencils to use. Like I have other types. I even have like the polychromos, but for what I do, they don't work for me. So Prismacolors are my favorite because they're waxy, so I feel like they give really good coverage and they just blend really, really well. So that also kind of helps me get the effect I have, like the way I color and whatnot. Like you can kind of see around it what I'm talking about and like the way that things look. Like that's just me learning. And that's just like how I learned how to color, and I'm like, I actually enjoy it because I feel like in a way it stands out from everybody else because it is different. Like more different than normal. Like obviously everybody is different, but I feel like at some point it's all the same. So I feel like mine has that benefit of like standing out no matter what, which I really enjoy. And I feel like it's necessary, especially like nowadays with all, everybody. So that's why I'm like, I enjoy it. Also, this panel, I was not about this panel either. I was kind of struggling to get through it, but I'm like, I have to. I'm like, I'm almost done with this page. I'm like, once I get through this panel, I'll be good. So this was a struggle. That's also the problem is like, even though I'm excited to do the comics, sometimes they're a struggle because I work on them like forever. And then I just get bored of them. And I'm like having to like struggle bust my way through it. So that's why I'm like, ugh. So it's definitely hard like working on something for a long period of time because at some point you just get done and you're like, I don't want to touch it anymore, but it's like you still kind of have to. So it's a very give and take kind of thing with comic working. But I mean, it'd be fun to do this professionally for sure. But I don't know. Maybe one of these days we'll have to see. But at least for now I can get through it enough. But I also feel like once I can get more like the exciting points and whatnot, it might be a little bit better for me because in the 5 comics I have, minus Arlathea, because that one I'm pretty well into it, so we have more action in that one. But the other 5 are just in that like slow period right now, so they're very like hard and difficult to get through because there's not really much going on. So it kind of sucks. But I'm like, I know it's almost like reading a book where it's like you have like the really fun parts that are like, okay, I have to get through this, like it's super cool, it's super exciting. And then you get to the parts that are so slow that it takes you forever to get through. That's how I feel with comics sometimes when creating these, because that's just what it feels like. Is that it's like once I can get through the boring parts, I can get to the exciting parts. So it just becomes like super difficult and it's very hard. So that's why I'm like, ugh. So I feel like definitely some pages are definitely easier for me to get through than others. But again, that's just the way that it is. And even like with creating some of these panels, it actually kind of helps me because I get to learn different things, or like I can try and experiment, which is probably not the best, but again, these aren't really like professionally made. But I just feel like it's a good way for me to experiment and try new things, and that way like over time as I create them, like look back, I can kind of see how I advanced over time, even if it's just like a little bit, it's baby steps, eventually will add up to create like that one big aha moment or whatever. So that's how I feel. So I'm like, even though some of it's just like really small little like tweaks or changes, I'm still learning something that I can apply for the future. So it's super nice. So I feel like just each like little panel, it's a little story itself, and it's like each one kind of gives a chance to like learn something new or just try something a little bit different. Or even like when I go back and like redo the lines, I can do the lines a little differently so I can push things forward more and other things back, which is what I tend to do. Because when I do the line, when I do the initial like line tracings and line art, I will obviously like outline everything just because I kind of have to so I don't lose a line so I can kind of color them. But I will do it a second time because even though I love my Prismas, they do tend to erase the line work I did previously. But like I don't do heavy line work. Like I tend to like super thin lines, like the pens I tend to use. I don't know what this one is. I kind of like 0.6 or 0.5, I think is what I generally enjoy using. Because to me, those kind of fit my lines. Like I don't like chunky lines, like I don't do anything special. So even when I go back in to re-outline, I will still just, I use like a regular ballpoint pen. Like I use a Bic pen, which the Bic pens I have, I absolutely love. Like I have very little problems with these and like very little complaint because sometimes they get clogged and won't work, but I think that's my fault for putting down too much pencil. But 9 times out of 10, they work fantastic for me. So, because I like to just go back in and redo the lines where I need to. So when I have the option, I will only outline things that I actually want to bring a little more forward and have it stand out more than what was originally done. So that way, even if it's like just the coloring itself, now I have some extra like boldness added, so you can kind of sit there and focus on one thing with like things kind of like blurred out in the background a little bit. So like with this panel, for example, his character, I'll do his hands and then up to his head. That's all that got outlined was that whole section. So his legs and the dragon behind him did not get outlined. So it just kind of helps push him forward, because that's where I want the most focus on, is like him talking and his hands clapping more than anything else. So that's kind of what I stuck with. Or it's like some of the other panels only have like little bits outlined where it's like I want that main focus. Other things, it might be the entire panel depending what's going on. Generally the background, unless I want the background to focus, will not get re-outlined just because it's the background. Like I don't really need to focus there. So it just depends on what I want pushed forward and what can kind of just stay there. Like some stuff, like you can tell what it is, but I'm not worried about it like being a focus. Like it's kind of just there on the side or whatever. So you can still see what it is, but like you don't have to like really like look at it. It's just kind of there like in your peripheral vision, essentially, is what I'm like trying to do. And like some stuff I do want it like a little bit more blurred, so there might be like the buildings right here on this panel. I have a little bit of it outlined, but then even just the coloring, I just do kind of like a fade down and that's it. So it's like you kind of get the impression that it's a building, but I'm not putting a total focus on it because it doesn't really matter at this point. It's just kind of there just for a background element. But for me, it's just not important. What's important is the character in the front who's talking. His name's actually Andrew, but she calls him Drew, the main character, because that's kind of her number 2. So Drew's talking, so I'm like, obviously I want the main focus on Drew when I get there with the lines. So it also depends on who's talking, on who gets to have the focus on them. Other times I just don't outline someone because I really just don't want to. And it's also, again, it's just not necessary to like outline everybody. Because like in the panel next to this one, I don't outline Drew, but I outline the other 2 and the army dude who's talking. So all 3 of them get outlined, but Drew does not, even though he's up front and center. But it doesn't matter. So it just depends. Well, you can kind of see here what I'm talking about, where I outline certain other people and others I don't. So it just depends on where I want my focus. But obviously sometimes I do have to outline the entire panel, because again, it's important. But yeah, you can also just see like the color situation, and I don't know, I just like how Prismas look with the marker. I just feel like they make them look a lot brighter and just a lot better. But that is it for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting. And I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!